Hi, everyone. Professor Scott coming to you remotely to share with you some wonderful things about social welfare policy. SW 419, a senior macro class. And even though a lot of people don't really think of social work as being political, it really is. And we're going to explore the wonderful side of social welfare policy in the next 7 weeks. And I hope it'll be a educational and fun experience for you. Um, these are not high production quality videos. I may look down, I have to check my notes, I might look up, I might have to stop the video at times. There's not a lot of editing that I can do. So please forgive me, and I hope that it will come across well for you. So let me ask you something. Can you name four social welfare policies? Think about it a minute. Is there anything that you can remember from your education that would be considered a social welfare policy? Take a few minutes just to think about that. Well, let's think about it. It's probably the most famous would be the Social Welfare Act of 1935. This is one that the country was in some trouble, heading towards the Depression, and the elderly were suffering. The government felt that the elderly needed a federal government program to help them survive, and so they developed Social Security. When you reach the age of 66, you will be able to attain the benefits, the financial benefits that you've been paying in your whole life. And this is a way to help the elderly to not suffer, go hungry, or not have housing. The social welfare policy of 1935 also provided unemployment insurance for those that were unemployed, as well as AFDC. Now, AFDC is Aid to Dependents, Aid to Children of Dependent Families, excuse me. And this was the predecessor to what we have today called TANF, TANF, Temporary Assistance to Needy Families. This was a program that was to help those that lost people in the war and to help the children survive who may or may not have two parents. How about, can you think of anything else? Can you think of another social welfare policy that maybe we've talked about in prior classes? Well, have you heard of the Affordable Care Act? Well, that's sometimes called Obamacare. You're not supposed to call it that, but that's that's a policy to help those with medical insurance. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 to help with discrimination. The Voting Rights Act of 1965. The Americans with Disabilities Act, 1990. The Older Americans Act of 1965. The Child Abuse Prevention and Treatment Act, 1974, was used and set up child protective services around the country. There was a lot of policies that the government has put in place as a social safety net. And they call this social insurance. This is to ensure that the citizens of our country would be taken care of in hard times, or times that our government could come in and support us through a time of poverty, suffering, war, or famine, plague, whatever we have. Our government provides this social safety net for us. And mostly because we're a fairly wealthy country, an industrialized country, in many of the third world countries, or less developed countries, as they would call it, they don't have these kinds of things. They don't have unemployment insurance. If you break your leg on the job, you go home, you have somebody fix it, and you might be fired from your job. They don't have those rights. They don't have the infrastructure and the money to support its people like we do. And that's unfortunate, but that's where social welfare policy is really important for our society. One of the things that we're trying to do with this social welfare class is accomplish the competency. And you know what a competency is. It's an action. It's something that we want to fulfill in our social work education. And our competency for this course, I'll just read it to you. It's to analyze, formulate, and advocate for policies that advance social and economic well-being. Well-being is another word for welfare. The welfare, or the well-being, the condition of a society to produce potential, happiness, and support to its members. We want to also understand how to be effective within the political system. How do we show good political action to push through policies that would help our agency? Now, here's how it goes. Many times, the policy comes first, government money comes around it. It does then to address a social need, and then an agency can take that money and produce a program, which then social workers work in that program. So the reality is that policy informs practice, and practice influences policy. That they go together. A lot of people like policy because it can affect more people than any other type of social work. You're going to help more people through laws, acts, policies, bills than you will through counseling, basically. And policy can be quite helpful. And a lot of social workers want to go into politics. Politics is something where you can affect a great mass or a critical mass of people. It is my hope that you will understand policy through our textbook, one by Jessica Ritter. It's called Social Work Policy Practice, Changing Our Community, Nation, and World, the second edition. This is an excellent book, great book, and all of our PowerPoint slides come from this book that are on Sakai. It's my hope that you will study all of the videos on the Sakai Learning Management Program, read all of the attachments, study the attachments, answer all of the questions on the Sakai, and hopefully, depending on how COVID is going, we will have some face-to-face time in the classroom, which will be great. So I hope that you will take these things seriously, study them. There's a lot of self-learning that goes in because of the critical time that we're in right now. So I hope you will study that very hard. So let me tell you just quickly, what is a social policy? You're probably going, oh, what's going on here? A policy, really, a social welfare policy, is a little different than like a military policy or a policy to affect libraries or state parks, foreign policy. Sometimes they overlap, though, because economics overlaps with just about everything. But a social welfare policy implies assuming a position or not assuming a position. Now, this is interesting. If you do not have a policy, that assumes that you do not think that it is a genuine social problem. We've done that through our history, American history, where we saw critical issues and decided not to address them until finally a social movement or popular vote came in, and we then decided to make a policy. So it is a position to act or not to act, and usually it is written into legislation. A bill becomes a law. You study that in political science, and this law then has some force behind it, usually has some money, state or federal money, to develop programs that then can address the problem, like foster care, adoption, child abuse, immigration, child welfare. These things to name a few. So those are some things that policy attempts to do. And if I could say it in one sentence, social welfare policy is society's attempt to solve a defined social problem. And when we have problems in society, it is good to get government support and implementation around those problems, period. So, in conclusion, I'd like to just welcome you to this course. I hope that if you struggle in any way that you will contact me. I hope to make this an enjoyable course. I want to refer you specifically to the NASW Michigan chapter website. Now, this website shows all of the policies that the Michigan chapter, the lobbyists in Michigan, are working on within our own state. If you go to NASW Michigan and then find the link to advocacy, hit that link and then go down to Legislation Action Center. Legislation Action Center. This will show all of the political involvement that our organization, our support organization, is doing in Michigan to eradicate injustice. And so I'm going to have you take a look at that. You're going to need that to work on your policy brief, as well as to look at policies for your policy analysis. So that would be a good homework assignment to check that out. I want to thank you. And in the next video, I'm going to talk just a little bit about ideology, because everything in policy comes from ideology, our belief system, our worldview, the roadmap we use to determine what is right and what is wrong, our belief system. And political ideology is so important, and it divides us in our two-party system because they're both different political ideologies. And it's my hope that you will come to looking at yourself and trying to understand your own ideology in regards to political action and political legislative policy. Thank you very much, and this is going to be a great course. I appreciate you. Bye-bye now.